Hey, I'm back, and this is a little bit different from what you're used to seeing on this channel, because today I'm going to take a little bit of a departure from what we're used to, the Kerbal Space Program videos about upcoming space flights, and instead discuss a little bit of space history. With Artemis on the pad and ready to go to the moon for the first time, I figured it's a good chance to look back on the history of the Artemis program and the programs that led us to this moment. So I figured I'd do a series of videos covering not just the Artemis program itself, but the programs that led up to the Artemis program, the sort of several precursor programs that got the elements necessary to build Space Launch System in place even before Space Launch System was a thing, and, just talk about the history of this rocket and this new spacecraft that's going to take us back to the moon. So I'm just going to jump right in with where it all began, and that's in the 70s, with the Space Shuttle. You see, as many have been really keen to point out, the Space Launch System is really just a rework of the shuttle components. And the idea of reworking the shuttle components into an expendable launch vehicle is not a new idea. In fact, there was a version of this proposed before the first shuttle launch. Now, it was basically just the RS-25s moved to the bottom of the external fuel tank and a pair of 4-segment solid rocket boosters strapped to either side with a payload fairing on top. This idea was put forth, however, it was never seriously considered, and the shuttle as we know it started flying for the first time in 1981. However, that wasn't the end of the idea of using the shuttle stack to launch payloads into orbit. It wasn't too long into the shuttle program that the idea of Shuttle-C, a cargo variant of the space shuttle, was devised. With this program, they basically removed the orbiter's wings and replaced the newer RS-25 engines, which were being used by the space shuttle, with older ones that had already flown several times, and the idea was that this stack could launch very large payloads into low Earth orbit. And while this was seriously considered, it got as far as to have a prototype built, it never actually flew and was abandoned in the early 90s. But that's when another program came into being. Now, this one is really kind of interesting because it kind of is the Space Launch System. It was called the National Launch System, and it basically consisted of a shuttle stack with 2 4-segment solid rocket boosters and 4 RS-25s mounted on the bottom of the external fuel tank, in a way that actually is very reminiscent of the way they're mounted on the bottom of SLS. On top of that would be an upper stage and a payload fairing, very similar to what we're going to see with SLS Block 1B. And while this was, once again, seriously considered in the early 90s, it didn't really get off the drawing board, and the National Space Program was distracted with the space station and maintaining the space shuttle. But all of that changed with a tragedy in 2003. On February 1st, 2003, while returning from STS-107, the Space Shuttle Columbia failed on re-entry, ultimately breaking up and causing the death of the entirety of the crew. With the loss of Columbia, the nation was forced to seriously re-examine the Space Shuttle program and its key safety flaws. Shortly after that, the decision was made that the Space Shuttle needed to be replaced by something new, something capable of taking humanity further than low Earth orbit and doing things that the shuttle could never do, like explore the moon and Mars. And this is where the nation really started to pivot towards a capsule-based system once again, very similar to Orion. In fact, this capsule-based system that they would ultimately develop in 2005 as part of a new program called Constellation was Orion. And that's where I'm going to leave off here on this video. In the future, I plan to do detailed videos covering the Constellation program, including, of course, using KSP replicas as visuals to show how this program would have worked. And I want to cover sort of the way that led into the Space Launch System and how the Space Launch System kind of found its way into the role it will fill in the future of American space exploration. Now, obviously, this is very different from what I normally do on this channel, and I want to assure everyone that the normal mission breakdown videos aren't going to stop. They'll actually be coming back, and we'll start to see those happening, as well as these videos covering the history of the Artemis program and some of the features of the program as well. But a lot of this hardware comes from the Space Shuttle and the Space Shuttle's design, and I actually did a video a while ago on designing the Space Shuttle, and I'll leave a link up here to my video on that. And if you have any questions about Artemis or Constellation or any of the systems that led up to it, leave them down below in the comments. I'll try my best to answer them, and there's plenty of very knowledgeable people in the community that I'm sure will be happy to answer those questions as well. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Spaceflight Made Simple, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.